our new leader for their fitting real. Me believe Nigeria will change. Me believe Nigeria will change. We are going now for the change. You wanna go with me? You don't want for the vote when you cast.
Acting President Yemi Osinbajo says honesty of public officials is key to the nation's economic growth.
Nigeria reaffirms commitment to OPEC towards achieving the stability of the global oil market.
Civil Defense, Fire Service, Immigration and Prisons Boards approve removal of dichotomy between holders of university degrees and higher national diploma.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine Nigerian police reform as well as the return of cinema culture in Nigeria.
Now, according to the Police Act, the duties of the Nigeria Police shall be the prevention and detection of crime, apprehension of offenders, the preservation of law and order, protection of life and property, and due enforcement of all laws and regulations with which they are directly charged, and shall perform such other duties within or outside the country as may be required of them by or under the authority of either the Police Act or any other law validly passed.
All right, that may not be the real news, actually, Kingsley. You know, what may be news is how well they have acquainted themselves or otherwise in the discharge of their duties, taking into account the state-of-the-art equipment at their disposal to perform their duties.
Now, while the Nigeria Police Force might have distinguished itself in international assignments where they are usually better equipped, in the country, the Inspector General of Police, that's the incumbent, says that the force needs to recruit at least 31,000 new policemen every year for a period of 5 years in order to meet a shortfall of somewhere around 55,000.
And while this will go a long way in supporting the police efforts to bridge the gap in manpower and to attain the United Nations standard of 1 policeman to 400 citizens, the issue of acquiring state-of-the-art equipment requiring billions of naira remains a far cry.
Now, regrettably, the sorry state of affairs at the Nigeria Police, which has continued to undermine the performance of the force, has led to continuous agitation for a constitutional change in support of state police.
All right, but it was indeed heartwarming when the acting president, through the Minister of Interior at the National Security Summit, assured that the federal government has advanced efforts to improve budgetary allocation to the Nigerian police force to address its logistic shortfalls. Of
course, also just last week, the acting president indicated that state police was a matter that was being considered, or state police or a variant of community policing was a matter that the federal government itself would be considering. But what is of greater concern is the fact that since 2008, a bill for an act to establish the Nigeria Police Force Reform Trust Fund and for other related matters is yet to be passed into law to strengthen the police reform towards meeting its constitutional mandate.
On another hand, in the Nigeria of today, especially in big cities such as Lagos, Abuja and Port Harcourt, watching movies on TV screens has become old school. cinema is the new cool. Aside maybe Mexican soaps and on Telemundo channels that holds our ladies captive, movie buffs prefer the big screen.
Quite right, Kiri. And now, apart from entertainment, going to the cinema for most young people is becoming a way of life. And with movie premieres becoming a major item on the events calendar, it appears that the cinema, of course, is staging a comeback. And for movie enthusiasts, the gradual return of the cinema to the Nigerian entertainment scene is indeed an indication that life does not begin and end with home videos.
Yeah, that's true, Kingsley. Like changing times indeed. The issues of police reform and return of the cinema culture will dominate our conversation today. And on that note, I welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria on the Africa's largest television network, the NTA. My name is Kirin Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, also welcoming you to the last edition of Good Morning Nigeria for the week on the network service of the NTA. It's a live program at all times, in the course of which we shall bring you our regular companion segments, including a newspaper review, business, foreign, and of course others. Venus Williams in sports, by the way, is through to the final of Wimbledon ladies singles, which is taking place tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, now it's time for us to have more morning news, and here is our newscaster this morning, Olajide Bello. Hi, Jide.
Many thanks. Good morning, Kingsley and Kibian, and welcome to the news. The acting president, Yemi Osinbajo, says honesty of public officials is fundamental to the growth of the nation's economy. He said this at the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Clinic in Abeokuta, Ogun State. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that Professor Osinbajo says Nigeria will only reach its full potential once things are done the right way.
We have tremendous potential, but we must do everything that needs to be done. We must behave in the way that great countries behave. We can't tolerate laziness. We can't tolerate stealing. We can't tolerate corruption. We must do the things that great countries do to be great.
Moving on now to the oil and gas sector, Nigeria has reaffirmed its commitment to continue working with other players for the stability of the global oil market. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and head of Nigerian delegation to the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, Dr. Emmanuel Ibe Kachoku, gave this assurance in Abuja. Lydia Sampson was at the news conference where the minister also said Nigeria is gradually recovering from challenges of production. And moving on now to the legislature, 9 bills for concurrence have been passed by the Senate. Senate leader Ahmed Lawan presented the bills, which include the avoidance of double taxation between Nigeria and some foreign countries. Presiding Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu noted that the passage of the bill will enhance trade relationship between Nigeria and countries affected. Still on the legislature, meanwhile, the House of Representatives has passed the National Assembly Budget and Research Office Bill. The legislators urged the federal government to direct the National Emergency Management Agency to extend assistance to the people of Anambra State who suffered devastation arising from flooding.
Concerned that the exclusion of Anambra State as one of the beneficiaries of the Flooding Relief Fund, it might be capable of creating some disaffection amongst the people of the state, and in particular, the people of our local governments.
Another issue that came up and the matter of urgent national importance was the late killings of 97 Nigerians from gendarmes from Cameroon. Still from the National Assembly, the Nigerian Television Authority entered into a joint venture with Star Times to meet modern digital television broadcasting after it got approval and advice from the Ministry of Information and Justice. This was the submission of Director General, Nigerian Television Authority, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, when he appeared before the House Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values.
NTA sought for foreign partners to actualize its objective of providing multi-channel and laying the foundation for a national digital switchover DSO. A strategic alliance partnership was agreed upon between the two parties, and a joint company was formed. The joint venture has helped in digital TV penetration in Nigeria and also reduced the digital divide by providing affordable PTV operation in Nigeria.
If we go back to the budget of this federation in the last 10 years, my colleagues, you will pity the NTA because we are not funding them as a national broadcasting agency for this nation.
And away from the legislature, Civil Defense, Fire Service, Immigration and Prisons Board, under the chairmanship of the Minister of Interior, Abdurrahman Dambazao, has approved the regularization of the dichotomy between holders of university degrees and higher national diploma, HND, in all the services. To this end, all officers with HND are to be upgraded to Compass 8. HND holders are to start with the rank of Senior Inspector, while the degree holders are to start with the rank of Assistant Superintendent 2. The board also approved the commencement of the year 2017 promotion for all the services with effect from 17th July 2017. To boost internal security, the board approved the establishment of the Institute of Domestic Security as well as an approval for the reorganization of the Nigeria Immigration Service in line with the provision of the Immigration Act, which stipulates the establishment of 8 directorates. The chairman of the board and Minister of Interior, Abdurrahman Dambazao, enjoined the services to redouble their efforts, as the approvals are in line with the executive order and the ease of doing business. And the Nigeria Police Force, in its renewed determination to prevent kidnapping and other violent crimes on the Abuja-Kaduna Highway, has arrested 7 principal suspects allegedly responsible for several kidnapping, armed robbery and cattle rustling. First Public Relations Officer CSP Jimmy Mashud made this known to journalists in Abuja while parading the suspects.
The Inspector General of Police have directed that the Nigerian Police Force, in its renewed determination to prevent crimes and criminality throughout the country, will not relent in ensuring that crimes that cannot be prevented are promptly detected.
Well, that's the news for now. Kingsley and Kieran will be back after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Slow, madam. Arikuwa. Good, carry on. Sit down. Akpa, now waiting be this. Smart gun over here, don't fit it. Everybody want make I put them on top. You remember I just smart connect me when I charge 100 naira, then go give me 800 naira. You don't have now every end of the month, then go give me back all my recharge. Why don't recharge? As that time on us, from this one, no, we just jar out. That now over Jara back to sender. Over Jara back to sender.
Mama, this is. Buy an Airtel SIM and get back all your recharges as data bonus by month end on Smart Connect.
Hey! Alele.
Airtel, The Smartphone Network.
Are you a government organization, private sector player, or stakeholder interested in the operation of remotely piloted aircraft system? Then this information is for you. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, is organizing a symposium on remotely piloted aircraft system for the African and Indian Ocean region. The symposium, with the theme Remotely Piloted Aviation in Africa, Sharing Experiences and Challenges, is scheduled to hold as follows. Date 17th to 18th of July 2017. Venue, Abuja Sheraton Hotel and Towers. For details and registration, please visit the ICAO website. Sabiu Zakari, Permanent Secretary, Announcer.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. And it's time for us now to take a look at some business copies, including the fact that 5 billion naira is said to have been lost to Nigerian ports following a shutdown. Let's join our correspondent, Amina Nujem, for details of the stories.
Good morning and welcome. Following preliminary data on Nigeria's economic performance, economists believe strong indicators in 6 critical areas in the nation's second quarter. 2017 gross domestic product GDP show Nigeria has exited economic recession. The 6 sectors relate to strong performance by agriculture, manufacturing, telecommunications, trade, real estate, as well as crude. The confidence is boosted by the fact that agriculture, manufacturing, telecommunications, and crude, out of the 6 largest contributors to the nation's GDP, are already showing strong performance. As a result, experts submit that it is possible that Nigeria could be returned to positive growth in the second quarter. In other news, it has been reported that at least 5 billion naira was lost by government agencies and other stakeholders at Nigerian ports due to shutdown of operations across the country by aggrieved port workers, led by officials of Maritime Worker Union of Nigeria and Senior Staff Association of Communication, Transportation and Corporation. The shutdown was a protest against moves by the National Assembly to repeal the NTA Act, which the workers described as anti-Nigeria. Investigations revealed that Nigerian Customs Service, NCS, alone lost over 2 billion naira to the disruption, while NPA, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NAMASA, importers and other operators in the ports were estimated to have lost between 2.5 billion naira and 3 billion naira. It was gathered that all the port formations in Lagos, Warri, Port Harcourt, One and Calabar were shut in protest against a bill pending at the National Assembly, which seeks to repeal the Nigerian Ports Authority Act and establish the Nigerian Ports and Harbours Authority to provide for ownership, management and development of ports and harbours and for related matters. Next is a graphic summary of closing figures from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That concludes business news. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly.
Thank you, Amina Nujem, for that business insight. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria. And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyabi, is here in the studio. You're welcome, Bayo, to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Kiria. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, Bayo, well, pleasure to have you join us. Let's begin our review this morning by taking a look at the front page of the Nigerian Pilot. Nigerian Pilot, from top to bottom, with headlines are as follows. Dogara queries non-disclosure of interests on foreign reserves. Dogara queries non-disclosure of interests on foreign reserves. Details on page 7. And suspension of NHRS boss. Northern youths give health minister 2-day ultimatum. That's on page 2. And the lead story, of course, has a double-decker headline: Nigeria must adhere to justice. That's attributed to the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And below the photograph on the front page, there's a headline with a kicker: raid on Namadi Sambo's house. ICPC arraigns fake whistleblower. That's on page 9 in greater detail. And also on page 2 in more detail, that's from the window of headlines you have at the foot of the front page of the Nigerian Pilot. It's new schools curriculum, Senate appeals for calm. And ACF endorses restructuring, but. And McCarthy's victory, many will return to PDP, and National Assembly will address regional agitations. Kiri.
All right, Kinsley. Now, the Guardian newspaper, below the nameplate, PDP offers Sheriff, that's Amadu Sheriff, amnesty, gives quick notice to the APC. And there's right there, Borno ruling party members hail Supreme Court verdict. Now, below the photograph on of the Guardian, we have reps who probe alleged killing of 97 Nigerians in Bakassi by Cameroonian gendarmes. And summons Adoshu over 2 trillion naira environment fund. That story is on page 8 of the Guardian. Now, Bayo, what are the interesting highlights here this morning?
Yes, prominent on the photograph there was the dignitaries that gathered at Ilaorogun yesterday. In fact, President Muhammad Buhari had telephoned Chief Bisi Akande to condole him on the death of his wife, Alaja Sikra Omowumi Akande. Garba Shehu, the special assistant to the president, has said the president also wrote and said to lose a wife, a dear wife, after 50 years of constant and loving companion through good and bad times is a blow. And the president said, and only a man of unshakable faith can withstand that. He sent his personal condolences to the immediate and extended Akande family. The acting president, Professor Oshibaju, as well as many dignitaries, including governors and leaders of the All Progressive Congress, were all at Ilaorogun yesterday. Mrs. Akande was described and hailed as spending her entire life in the service of God and humanity. Meanwhile, the story that Kingsley read about Northern youths giving ultimatum for the installation of the Director General of the National Health Insurance Scheme also is another story. Says the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Health Insurance Scheme, whose suspension was advised against by the House of Representatives, has also been reversed. A reprieve is no longer forthcoming because the acting president has sought the Minister of Health to take necessary action based on 2 petitions that he has received, which he attached in a letter, alleging that there was a fraud of about 960 million naira. Minister of Health is directed to inquire and take necessary action. The other story is about the House of Rep. They have also asked the executive to stop every concession, privatization and commercialization of any public enterprise. This, they argue in their resolution, is because they have been engaged without the full approval of a formally constituted National Council Board of Privatization. In that regard, they have sought that the Committee of Privatization and Commercialization is to investigate the healthy or those approved by the Federal Executive Council for concession. Some of the concessions that are under question are the International Airport Murtala Mohammed, Nnamdi Azikiwe in Abuja, the Malam Aminu Kano Airport in Kano, as well as Port Harcourt International Airport.
And by the way, Bayo, that story, the story on the airport, or yes, part of what you just mentioned, is on the front page of New Telegraph, okay, above the name flag of New Telegraph. You have the headline: Federal government to implement 36 billion naira MMA2 concession pact. That's how New Telegraph captures it. Federal government to implement 36 billion naira MMA2 concession pact. Below that is another headline. It says, Adeosun recounts, says Nigeria will continue to borrow. That's on page 6. We had a story a couple of days ago saying that Nigeria had reached its borrowing limits. Now, the finance minister is said to be recanting and indicating that the country will continue to borrow. Below the nameplate, you have the following headlines. Teachers arrested for infecting schoolgirls with STDs. That's on page 9. And passenger slumps and dies on arrival at Lagos Airport. And court remands whistleblower over false information on ex-vice president Sambo. And Arewa youths petitioned UN over Biafra agitation. That's on page 5. Now, this is the story, the lead story for the New Telegraph. It's one that comes from the weekend flooding that occurred in Niger State. Agony of a father. That's the kicker. I lost 2 wives and 6 children to flood. The story is in greater detail on page 2. But now, this is one of the excerpts there. It's a long rider. Let me just read it. It says, one of my wives held the 14-day-old baby and another child to herself. But the flood overpowered us. Then the house collapsed on us. The flood claimed everything and everyone I had. 2 wives and 6 children. That's according to Malam Seidu Abubakar. That's you can see his photograph there. That's to the left side of your screen. That's the photograph you have. Just one person, one object. A very sad, very sad development. Sad development. I mean, that's the number of persons we indicated, according to some of the reports, that some 13 persons had died. You know, in the floods. And many
missing too.
Yes, there are reports of missing. The lesson, they had lessons to learn from this is that some of the buildings that were involved were actually built on the floodplain, some in the river path, and therefore there was no rescue when the flood came tumbling down. So those are the issues that one needs to worry about.
There are, you know, across the federation, you have various departments, whether they call them urban planning, regional planning, by whatever name so-called, and you have persons who are working in those offices and who, at the end of 35 years, will retire and be looking forward to their pension. What do they do when they see those houses smack in the, you know,
in many shanties, exactly, and now, without any town planning.
Yes, that's right.
The alarm now is all the banks and the floodplains of River Niger, Benue, and major tributaries, Sokoto River, Kaduna River, Cross River, Ogun River, Osun River. There's time now for alarm to ring all those who are living in those
Absolutely. I mean, of course, we saw what happened in 2012.
Yes.
I mean, some of them said, look, they end their livelihood. Their livelihood depends on their closeness
to the river.
To the river bank. But when there is danger, I mean,
there's no livelihood.
You receive.
And most times they refuse to evacuate. You know, even when
in that case, you have forced removals.
You can be forced to protect your own life.
All right, I was just wondering, Bayo, just 2 other stories I want to take from the front page of the New Telegraph, just before you come in. Now, the story is Ambode. That's the back again to the New Telegraph. The photograph there on the front page. Now I'm showing 2 persons in the photograph. It says Ambode suspends monarch for faking abduction. That's the ballet of Shangisha in Lagos. Chief Yusuf Ogundare with his brother and accomplice Muhammad Adams after they were paraded by the police yesterday. It has been suspended. And 2019, this is on bragging. It says we'll send Buhari and APC out of Aso Rock. That's according to the PDP. 2 riders there. Makarifi grants amnesty to Sheriff. And I'm in shock over judgment. That's according to Sheriff. Details of that story can be found on page 3.
Okay, but let me get done with this before you now do final analysis. This is Daily Trust now. And below the nameplate, while we promote dry ports by Shippers Council Buzz, the story is on page 3 of Daily Trust. And below that, BSc HND dichotomy ends in parliamentary services. These are one headline I'd like Bayo to respond to, because it's been there for over the years, in all sectors of the working class. Now, the major story here this morning is Oshibajo meets House leadership. You can get the story on page 5. And then, beside the photograph here, PDP grants amnesty, yes, we read that in other papers, to Sheriff and others. It's on page 34 of Daily Trust. And then also, besides the photograph, Kano government introduces 5% consumption tax. All right, Bayer.
Yes, the acting president meeting with the leadership of the House is part of the negotiations, the joy that is going on between the spark that has evolved between the National Assembly and the executive. But meanwhile, talking about the Minister of Finance, he says government has engaged asset tracing companies to investigate tax payment status of 150 companies and firms. This investigation will now rely on bank verification number, records of property ownership, records of foreign exchange allocation, and records of company ownership at the Corporate Affairs Commission to ensure and verify whether you have paid tax. This is under the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme. In fact, one critical aspect of it is that no one will be left out. It says that some beggars earn millions and they will be made to account for what they earn through tax. Talking about whistleblowing, you say different strokes for different folks, and there are three of them here. The first is the whistleblower who gave information to the Independent Corrupt Practices Offences Commission, which led to the raid of the residence of the former vice president. The man was arraigned in the Kaduna High Court for providing false information, and secondly, for misleading public officers while on lawful duty. Now, talking about faking of kidnap, a man has staged his own kidnap and demanded 60 million naira. He connived with a friend, asked the friend to go and report to his working place that he has been abducted, and demanded 60 million from his brother. The police in Lagos had nabbed him, and he's to account for that. The third is rob in hijab. You've heard of Robin Hood, the man who was robbing in Nottingham Forest and giving to the poor. This one is a man who wore hijab and was robbing people. He disposed people of their money and phones, but one motorcycle rider stood up to him. After injuring the man, he was overpowered, and he confessed that he has been engaging in robbing, wearing hijab for over 5 years. He says people least expect women or somebody in hijab to be an armed robber.
End of the road for him. That's right. But that's the much that we can take. There are other stories, of course, you will find inside the pages of the newspapers, which are not on the front pages. I mean, one is that INEC is suspending Melaye's recall process. You have that on page 7 of New Telegraph.
What about this BAC-HAD dichotomy?
Just hold on a second. Another one is that Etisalat has had a name change from Etisalat now to 9 Mobile.
HND, BSc dichotomy, it has been raging for long. It's a policy that Ministry of Education will have to make a pronouncement. In fact, the National Assembly have made a resolution and have made a pronouncement, but there has not been a law to make the two of them equal as it is.
All right. Well, Bayo, thank you for being with us today and indeed for the week. We'll see you on Monday after you have a restful weekend.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're dealing with 2 sets of issues. First, of course, is how to effectively reform the Nigerian police to ensure its more effective performance of duties, as well as the boom of cinemas across the country.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. No be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Oh boy, come down now. Oga Kasali electrician, who would they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from over.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
world of superb taste. Now here in Nigeria.
Everyone, try it and enjoy the delicious goodness.
We are bringing our new noodles to every corner of the country. That's right. It tastes great. It tastes fantastic. It's time for a new noodle.
Nigeria, you want the truly delicious taste? Come and get it! Be supreme, Nigeria.
Cadbury Bournvita now comes in an attractive new 500-gram refill pack. Simply open and reseal after use to retain the chocolatey and creamy taste. Cadbury Bournvita. Prepare to win.
Thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, factors and challenges militating against the effective performance of the Nigerian police force have remained talking points for Nigerians and security experts over the years. This has given room for consistent call for police reform as we bring the issue on the front burner. Ahmed Mbali now gives us a background report.
A moment of triumph. One of those occasions when the Nigerian police stands with its shoulders high. Recently, good old-fashioned policing resulted in the capture of notorious kidnap mastermind Chukwudi Onwumadike, aka Evans. Moments like this reinforce public confidence in the men in blue, but unfortunately, there are but a few instances of such. Policing in Nigeria over time has been contentious. Issues relating to corruption and high-handedness of officers have come to dominate public discourse at the expense of effectiveness of the nation's law enforcers. Though there are some poorly trained and sometimes unruly officers amongst the rank and file, there however exist within the bulk some who are just trying to do their jobs in a challenging environment. Lacking in facilities and confidence, the Nigerian police, compared to its counterparts in developed societies, is hampered in the discharge of its responsibilities. With military presence in about 32 states of the Federation performing roles constitutionally assigned to the Nigerian police due to their ill-equipped state, need to reposition the police force for operational efficiency remains a recurring appeal. All of this put together have been the motivation for those calling for reforms in the Nigerian policing system. The transition from military rule in 1999 marked the first real efforts to undertake reform of the Nigerian police force. Between the year 2000 and now, when a series of announcements signaling the government's plans to reorganize the force were made, not so much has changed. The image of a courteous, disciplined and professional police force still eludes the country. While community policing may have gained momentum in some parts of the country, there's no doubt that more needs to be done in the creation of partnerships with civil society, improvement in internal and external communications of the force, the provision of adequate resources, improvement in leadership, and reduction of fair and violent crime in communities. Innovative practices that bring about greater confidence in the police by members of the public also have to be entrenched. When all of these administrative and behavioral challenges bedeviling the force are resolved, the country can begin to enjoy more inspiring moments with its police force clamping down on deviant elements in society.
All right, thank you very much there, Ambali, for that background report. Now we have joining us in the studios for this conversation, Professor Al-Mustafa Medana is right here with us. He's a researcher with the National Assembly. And then also joining us from our Lagos Network studios is a retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, Israel Ajao. DIG, it's a pleasure to have you join us from our Lagos studios.
Nigeria.
And in the studio also, to be part of this conversation is Emmanuel Ojukwu, a former commissioner of police and also a former police spokesperson. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
You have experience because you have served in different parts of the country. It's good to have you join us.
Sure, thank you.
And also from House of Representatives, we have, well, we're privileged actually to have Honorable Olamide Oni, a member of House Committee on Police. Sir, you're welcome to the program.
All right. Well, let's begin the conversation straight away with Honorable Olamide Oni. We've heard about several attempts at reforming the Nigeria police, including, of course, a bill that is lying there at the National Assembly. A number of executive committees have been set up, MD Yusuf Committee and several others. But still, the problems of the police force continue to linger. Exactly from your perspective is what is wrong with moving ahead with positive efforts aimed at rejigging the Nigeria police force?
Thank you very much. Over the years, several attempts have been made to improve the police and to reposition and retool the police force. But unfortunately, it has not come to pass. Let me quickly correct an impression. I'm not just an honorary member of the House of Rep. I happen to have served in the Nigeria Police Force for 34 years. And I retired in the Nigeria Police Force as an Assistant Commissioner of Police. So I came and I saw it, and I saw the lapses that have been happening in the police. And if given the opportunity, I should be able to write a thesis on the police of what the police needed to function, to perform, to rise up to the security challenges we have in Nigeria. So that is one of the things that prompted me that this bill must be moved. Even though attempts have been made by the past assemblies and it has not gone far. So that is why I decided to move this bill, and I'm happy that it has passed the second reading. And a public hearing has even been held on it, and it's receiving attention, a very serious and aggressive attention with members of the House. So,
all right, and Mr. Ojukwu, towing the line of expression by the honorable member here with us, who has also moved the bill in question. You have served police for a long time as a retired person who also served in several departments and cities across the nation. What is the crux of the matter? Several attempts have been made to correct this anomaly, yet nothing has happened, irrespective of the fact that police is very important in the society. What's your take?
Yeah, you've hit it properly. The police is very, very important. Every Nigerian needs to appreciate the importance of the police as an agent of government, agent of the people that is set out to serve them. That has not been properly appreciated, and that's a key problem. Who owns the police? It is Nigeria's police. The police of Nigeria, by Nigerians. Every policeman I know in this country is a Nigerian, and for Nigerians. So by the time, once you appropriate the organization, you claim it is yours, you treat him as one of yours. That's a key factor. And having treated him so, that means that you begin to provide the wherewithal to work. What is the essence of policing? Why did I create this organization? We created the police. It didn't just arrive. Having done that, once you appropriate it, you begin to provide for him the wherewithal to work, give him the right environment, then you've got the ball rolling, and we're going to score.
All right, can we bring in a prof here as a researcher and someone who also has gotten some kind of experience, in this area? What's your take?
My take, if you look at it, let's just do a comparative analysis with other Nigerian other police service around Africa. Let's take Kenya, for example, with 46 million people. Their budget is almost $1.2 billion. Take South Africa, with 53 million population. They have almost $6 billion. Now, Nigerian police in the budget of 2016, what they have was $54 million, and only 30% of that was released. That is about $16 million. With 7,000 formations, if you take their DTA and running costs and everything is 411 million. If you now share it among this formation, what you are going to have is 58,000 naira. That means you have 4,000 naira to each police station. How do you run this kind of police? If you now take Chicago police, for instance, with the high crime and everything in that place, they have almost how many billion? Almost $8 billion to run the police in those climate. So definitely we have to look at it this way. With 300,000 police force in Nigeria or more than that, definitely Nigerian police need to have other sources of funding. If not, without security, there is no development.
I was just wondering, Prof, you were reading out figures with regard to the budget for the police in at least two jurisdictions, Kenya and South Africa, versus what we have in Nigeria. The figures you read out with respect to the Nigeria police force, would those figures also necessarily include, for instance, the regular support that state governments provide to the Nigeria police?
No. If you look at it, what the state governments, this bill is seek to subsume all those kind of support by the state government so that the trust fund can manage and administer the fund given by those states. So actually, this bill is kind of, let's take it like a third fund model, actually. So when we have this, it will augment and consolidate whatever state government is doing, whatever local government is doing. That's why there will be stakeholders after even the public hearing, so that those, the Speakers Conference, the ALGON, the Governors Forum, will be there to just consolidate or to look at the bills and now harmonize, even the Senate version actually, to harmonize it so that maybe we can have a very robust police service in Nigeria.
All right, Professor Mendana, thank you very much. Let's go over now to retired Deputy Inspector General of Police Israel Ajao, who is right there in our Lagos Network studios, and of course is also involved with the Lagos State Security Trust Fund operations. Retired DIG Israel Ajao, once again, I'd like to have you join us. With regard to efforts aimed at reforming the Nigeria Police Force for greater effectiveness, what are your thoughts before we get into the funding aspect? Because some persons argue that funding alone is not the major headache of the police.
Well, the issue of reform of the Nigeria Police Force has been a subject of public discourse for a very long time. And the reason is not far-fetched. The police has been underfunded. That is also a fact that cannot be overemphasized. And if you look at the enormity of the challenges facing the police, the responsibilities that the police is expected to shoulder in the Constitution, under the Police Act, under various statutes, I mean, it cannot be otherwise. I say often that you cannot ask somebody to guard a house, or you get a guard dog to guard a house, and you chain that guard dog. That dog will only bark, it will not bite. We are aware that the police force, the Nigeria Police Force, is the only police force recognized by the Constitution, Section 214, bracket 1, 1999 Constitution, as amended. And if we have agreed that that is the only police force for the entire country, then that police force should be empowered. I know that attempts have been made in the past by past leaders of the force and the country to reform. The MD Yusuf panel of committee of 2008, the Damadami committee of 2010, the DIG Pari Osayende committee of 2012. But nothing seems to have come out of it. At best, maybe we've been scratching the problem on the surface. And it is the country that bears the brunt. If the police is not properly funded and not properly equipped to discharge its onerous responsibilities, at the end of the day, it is the society that suffers. So the earlier something is done, the better for it, for the country.
Mr. Joe, you're very experienced as a retired DIG, and you saw it all within the years you served in the police. Well, if you're asked to, make an insight into what ought to have been done, well, with respect to the bill now currently in the National Assembly, what would you be expecting, them to do to ensure that all these complaints about the police and non-performance based on poor funding can come to a stop?
Thank you very much. Well, the public is entitled to criticize, so to speak, the performance of the police. But again, those in the force, those who have been in the force, those who are still in the force, they know where the shoe pinches. I mean, there is no other way to it. This bill is overdue. And I thank God for the likes of Honorable Olamide Oni, maybe because some of us are now getting to the political landscape. Our voice, by the grace of God, will be heard. I thank God for his efforts. It is long overdue. If you look at the resources of this nation, all of us know, without being economists, that the resources are dwindling. The resources are not what they used to be. There are competing needs. There are so many sectors to be catered for by the federal government. The police is just one of them, but an important one for that matter, because issues of security, if you look at the preamble to the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, it says the primary purpose of government shall be the promotion of the welfare and security of the citizens. I mean, if that is the case, that apparatus of government that should carry out that constitutional responsibility should be well funded. If we cannot leave funding to the federal government alone, then there should be alternative source of funding. Like you rightly pointed out, look at the model of Lagos State, the Lagos State Security Trust Fund. For the years that this trust fund has been in existence, policing, the resource, a lot of resources have been plowed into policing Lagos State by the Lagos State government. And of course, you know, by its very nature, trust fund itself will not be dependent totally on government alone. Public-spirited people, private organizations, people who appreciate the need for adequate security in all the 774 local governments of this country will be ready and willing to contribute. And by the time you pull all these resources together, the police will come out of the doldrums.
All right. Thank you very much there, retired DIG Izolaja. We'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation to come back to the studios where we still have Honorable Olamide Oni, that's a member of the House Committee on Police. Now, we've referenced the bill which is past second reading. What are the highlights of this bill that we're looking at? What essentially does it seek to achieve?
Well, in the first place, the bill seeks to provide for adequate funding of the police. It seeks to provide for training and retraining. It seeks to provide for logistic supply, technology, logistics, you know, equipments, the welfare of the personnel. You know, you cannot, for over the years, if you send a policeman for an assignment, they don't get their night allowances. For over the years, if a policeman is transferred from one location to the other, where they are going to, there's no accommodation for them to sleep under the trees, in the caravans. Then will you expect those people that slept in the caravan overnight to perform well the following morning? There was nothing like that. No provisions for the welfare of the men. And if these people are to address the security challenges we are having all over the world, the manpower requirement of the police is not even there. The 300,000 policemen you are talking about is not sufficient. It's grossly inadequate for the population of this country. Put it plus or minus, Nigerian population is going to about 180 million. Then we have only 320,000 policemen to guide them. The UN standard is one policeman to 400 citizens.
I'm sorry to interject, Honorable Olumide Oni. Let's go back to the bill. What are the key issues? Some of the issues we talked about now, some persons will argue these are operational matters. Even if you had a law and the operators didn't follow the law, then you have some of the challenges dealing with the welfare of the police. What exactly are we looking at in terms of the trust fund for the Nigerian police? Where will the monies come from? Who will provide for it? How will it be? What is the governance arrangement?
We are looking at it that those who will provide for the funding of this police, number one, the Nigerian government, the federal government, because the budgetary allocation is inadequate. That's why we are looking for the trust fund. One, we are looking for the multinationals, internationals. We are looking for NGOs. We are looking for private organizations, and you know, those who are doing business in this country. There's nobody that is doing business in this country that does not need security. Even if they come from elsewhere, from the third world country, or the developed country, when they come to Nigeria, they need security. If they are not secured, they will make noise, and they cannot work. Even those of us in Nigeria will need security to work. And that's why we are saying that security of Nigeria should be taken into cognizance. The Nigerian police force that is saddled with the responsibility of securing the country should be repositioned. If they are repositioned, they'll be able to address all the security challenges we're having. Look at what we're having in the northeast. Look at what we're having in the southeast. Look at the ugly one that is rearing its head in the southwest. If the security people are there, if logistics are there, like those who are passing through the waterways, we have been providing logistics for the police. We have been concerned with only vehicular provision. What of those referral areas? And if you look at these vehicular provisions, it's not peculiar to the problems in each of the areas in Nigeria. There are areas where you can use pickup, there are areas where you can use Land Rover, there are areas where you can use some other means of transportation. Those are one of the things militating against the police. Take, for example, the provision of crafts, speedboats here and there on water. Policemen must man it. There must be gunboats. And these equipments are very, very expensive. The budgetary allocation allocated to the police cannot buy these equipments. During the period of IG Okiro, a provision of 10 gunboats was made for River State. I was on patrol then. I was one of those who made use of that gunboats. I want to tell you, by the time we put those gunboats on water to start all the creeks in River State, choked by us, the issue of piracy, smuggling, bunkering was drastically reduced to the barest minimum. But those things are moribund now.
No, Wiki recently also donated some gunboats.
Yeah, and this thing, if they recently donated, this thing must be of continuous nature.
Yes.
It must be sustained. If it is not sustained, it must be service. Sustained. No. If it's not sustained, then if it is periodical, there will be loose insecurity.
Yes, especially now that the crime seems to be on the increase with new injections like kidnapping, which has now been made a very special kind of criminality. Now let's return to Emmanuel Ojukwu. We're glad that all of you, or most of you here, are experienced police people who have also retired, with a lot of experiences. Now, if you look at what happened in Turkey, where the police was able to foil a coup in a country. Right, it shows the relevance and importance of this sector. Now, what can the police do within its own self, within the organization? Is there any possibility of the police also applying some level of intelligence into how they can, from within, help themselves? Is that a possibility?
Sure, it has been happening for quite some time. Only that we're asking that the ante should be increased. The police has an intelligence network which is alive, viable, and viral. It's been working. If you take, for example, the recent arrest of some notorious kidnappers and all that, they were aided by intelligence. What we're asking is that the way we are working now is like we are doing 21st century policing with analog equipment. We haven't got there yet. That's why this trust fund will come to increase the police capability to get there before the criminals get there. And where we don't get there before them and they operate, we'll be able to detect, arrest them, and bring them to justice.
We've had police funds in the past. What happened?
Well, they've not been coordinated. The last one was a beehive of corrupt activities. It was a national disgrace, we know it. It was not backed by law. What is being done now is to have a legal framework, a platform where funds will be collected from individuals, governments, and all that, managed by a board appointed by either the president or whoever in government, supervised, that is accountable. That's what we're asking for now.
I want to thank retired Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Ojukwu. That's the question I would like to ask also of Professor Medana. What again are the provisions in the bill with regard to the funding, the sources of funding, and the management of the funds. When you were speaking earlier, you referred to the TED Fund operations. We know TED Fund was created by the military administration of General Ibrahim Babangida, requiring 2%. A 2% levy on companies, you know. But here, who are those that are proposed to fund the bill, and how would it be? Is it an additional taxation, or is it voluntary contribution, or what?
And actually, if you look at it, this is the House version. There is Senate version, which will be harmonized to look at it side by side. And in the Senate version, I think there is provision for charges from state governments, local governments funds, and other funds. Then you look at the multinational and the international donors, where maybe they contribute to security. Then if you go to Cybercrime Act, you look at it, there is 40% dedicated for fighting terrorism, 60% is lying parallel. So from there, maybe that act can be amended so that it will be funding the police fund too. So there are different sources of funding that the bill is looking at. But let me just digress a bit. If you look at even the Police Act needs to be amended. The last amendment was, I think, 1968, to be at par with modern policing. Actually, he talked about intelligence. I think the police has only 3 technology centers. That's why to track criminals is very difficult for the police. Right now, according to NCC statistics, we have almost 145 million GSM subscribers or active lines. What the police will do with this if we have a database, because security is about who you know, not what you know. But the more information you have on individuals, the more accurate you predict their action. The more accurate you protect the society against the harm of that individual. So we don't have such data bank in Nigeria. If they have that data bank, they have DNA center, definitely police will be effective. That is, I think,
well, the police will argue. The police will argue that they have acquired newer forms of technology, which, of course, have now aided them in some of the arrests that they have made.
It's not sufficient.
I understand, but just to indicate that, you know, they are climbing on that scope. Kirian, just to return to DIG Israel Ajao, where in our Lagos network studios, as you said, I mean, you are quite familiar, and you are part of the operations of the Lagos State Security Trust Fund. What we are looking at here at the national level, what are the likely challenges, assuming this bill becomes law? I would like you to advert your mind to what is happening currently with regard to the NDDC. There's supposed to be some contribution to the funding of the NDDC from the IOCs, as international oil companies. And you'll be having this toing and froing over arguments as to who is sufficiently providing the funds, who is not sufficiently providing the funds. So will it be sufficient now to have it merely in black and white as part of the law, and then you go out there, you're unable to raise the funds that you need?
Thank you very much. If you take the model of the Lagos State Security Trust Fund, to have a piece of legislation is very good. The legal framework is good to give it some legal bite, but there must be that political will, and that is what I expect should go into this. There must be that determination by all Nigerians to realize 2 things. 1, Nigerians need adequate security. That is without question. If Nigerians need it, and the federal government alone cannot shoulder that responsibility, then we should look elsewhere. If the fund is well managed, well structured, and managed by people of integrity, it will inspire public confidence. I am not expecting that the largest preponderance of the fund will come from governments alone. Governments are already doing it. There is hardly any state government in Nigeria today that is not supporting the police force. There are various police commands. I know that in Lagos State, we have a beautiful example of the governor who is so passionately committed to security of lives and property, and who does everything within his powers to ensure that the Lagos State Police Command is well funded. If we replicate that in all states of the Federation, if we bring in the local governments, but my focus really is on the multinationals, the private organizations, the end users of police services, and they are all over. I mean, name any state in this country where the multinationals do not enjoy one form of service or the other from the Nigeria Police Force. I mean, paying a little bit of whatever profits they make will not be too much to ensure that government efforts are complemented in ensuring adequate funding for the police. I bet you, if the police is well funded, Nigerians, I want to assure you, the police force has some of the best hands that you can boast of anywhere in the world. I have benefit of hindsight, I know this. Even at the lower level, the much criticized rank and file. I want to tell you, when I was a student at the National Institute in 2006, we went on study tour of the United States. I was privileged to speak with the commissioner of the New York Police Department. And when he told me what they have in the arsenal, I just shut my mouth, because the entire Nigeria Police Force could not boast of 1/10 of the resources and logistics available to the NYPD. We moved over to the UN Secretariat, United Nations Secretariat, and I was amazed when I saw a Corporal Mohammed, shaking hands. His life portrait is there, with the former UN Secretary General, Boutros Boutros-Ghali, for his gallant performance in Cambodia. So if Mohammed could go to Cambodia and perform so excellently well, he can do the same in Nigeria. But for the environmental factor, which this fund is set to address, give us the funds, give the leadership of the force the funds, and they will turn around the story of the Nigeria Police Force.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ajo. Let's return to the studio for now, and I'd like to bring in Mr. Emmanuel Ojukwu here. Gentlemen, a number of presidential reform committees from MD Swift in 2008, Madame in 2010, to Osayende in 2012. They have recommendations. Now we are at the National Assembly looking for a bill to better the laws of the police. Well, these reforms I read out now were reforms aimed at reforming the police. And some decisions were reached. And nothing happened. There are funds raised from state governments, to assist, the police in their area for security reasons, and nothing has come out of it. Now, I want to ask all of you, what role could public-private partnership play, a coordinated public-private partnership in this respect? Because Nigerians would not like the bill to be passed, and after all said and done, management and coordination of funds will become difficult. And I'd like to bring in Emmanuel Ojukwu here.
Yes, talking about public-private partnership, that is what community policing is all about. The police is owned by the people, as I said earlier on. Now, those who own it have to fund it. Funding it, you demand accountability from them, from the police. What the government has done over the years, and which the police has accepted wholeheartedly, is community policing, whereby members of the public partner with the police, believing that they own the police. In partnering with the police, they provide information, provide wherewithal, and give the police the leeway to deliver quality service to them who are the ones calling the shots. And thereafter, ask for accountability. You cannot partner with somebody and don't demand returns from him. Police has been doing that, and we are working along that line. But this law will now give it a better teeth. So that when funds are pulled by partners, by those who are collaborating with the police, those who consume police services, when the funds are provided, a board has to manage the fund, disburse the funds as the need arises, because every police formation serves a particular community. Every community has peculiar needs. So these provisions have to be need-tied so that you can get the best out of the funds. It's not just a fund for giving policemen money, but to provide for efficiency, effectiveness, professionalism.
How would you respond again to some cynical view that, look, in this country we have an ecological fund to manage ecological disasters? And the disasters that are reported, month on month, year on year, would indicate the poor management of such a fund. What guarantees are we likely to have in the bill to ensure that we do not fall into the same trap?
You see, Nigeria has a corruption problem, and we all know that. So every fund that comes becomes a cash cow. Somebody wants to dip in there, buy more cars, marry more wives, as the case may be. They get misappropriated. But somebody has to be held to account for that. This bill, when it's passed into a law, it will give it a teeth. Let somebody who has been given so and so to perform account for what has been given to him. The costs are there. More prisons will be built to send people to jail where they go. Otherwise, that is the way it is. Yes. But where evil keeps festering when good people keep quiet. The job of government is security and welfare. Government should not fund a project, allow people to bring their monies and put into a project, and allow somebody get more houses for himself. It's unfair to the system.
Now, Prof, yes.
Yes, I think the control mechanisms, they are in the contained in the bills. Can just, what I would say, you see the judicious use of the funds, and again, it's going to be a board, as he said, a board with an ES, Executive Secretary, be appointed, and the members of the board, and all those, let's say, clauses in the bills will guide the board. Police will send in their needs, assess the needs, then they will disburse the fund or monitor the projects. It's not going to be, oh, we are giving the police directly. No, there is a board to manage the funds. And I think this thing, there is kind of transparency and accountability.
I'm remaining with you, Prof. When you say control mechanism.
Yes.
Now, as Emmanuel Ojukwu said, it depends on the individuals that are going to form this board, because the problem has always been that people are there. People have been appointed to, discharge the responsibility. But at the end of the day, nothing happens. So that's why it even clearly raised the issue of accountability. How are we sure? Because as a matter of fact, when this bill is passed, every Nigerian looks forward to getting this bill passed, at least to give a teeth to the police, to give support to the police. But the most important thing here is the workability of the entire plan. That's what Nigerians are worried about.
We have seen the success of TED Fund, and actually the tertiary institutions will attest to that, and the TED Fund is working. And if you have credible Nigerians appointed into the board, actually it's going to be an easy thing. What I mean, an easy thing, you have the control mechanism. Before you spend 1 kobo, the board has to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Then before you disburse, you monitor, and you have the National Assembly with the oversight functions over whatever is going to happen there. You have even the police to arrest those that were indicted and prosecute them. So definitely there are control mechanisms. It's only when the security agency closed their eyes. Recently, I had one of the members of Police Service Commission was, let's say, investigated by the EFCC. Definitely, if you have those mechanisms, there won't be any problem.
All right, Professor Nedana, thank you very much. Just to return to retired DIG Israel Ajayi in our Lagos network studios. That's a question, of course, that will agitate the minds of certain proponents. Last week, for instance, I mean, we had a clarion call again for the establishment of state police or whatever variant of community policing there might be. Now, you will refer to the NYPD. Of course, the NYPD is not the federal police. The NYPD, as you just said, is the New York Police Department. So how will, for instance, the bill that is now in the National Assembly with regard to funding the federal police square with the ongoing agitation for reform of the police, breaking it down, and then having state police according to some proponents?
Thank you very much. Agitation, call for restructuring, these are components of democracy. You cannot stop people from asking, legitimately though, for structures to be changed. But I bet you one key fact remains. Whether it is state police, whether it is federal police, if it is not properly funded, it will go the same way. That is the truth. Here we are talking of not funding the Nigerian police force over the years properly. And that has affected its performance, its preparedness for operations, and so on and so on. If you carry the same attitude to state police, it will become moribund. So I want us to change our perception, first and foremost. If we set up an organization to ensure protection of life and property, to maintain law and order, that organization should be given what it takes to perform its constitutional responsibility. I think that's the key factor here. If we have a trust fund, as we have in Lagos State, and it is well managed, credible people are there, it's not loaded with bureaucrats, we have people from the private sector, from whom most of these donations come from, they will not sit down there and expect their monies to be, allow their monies to be mismanaged. So the first thing is what Honorable Olamide is doing, put in the legislation, then have the political will, have acceptability by all Nigerians that there's a need to fund the police properly, and I think we will get it right. Whether it is state police, whether it is federal police, the fact remains that funding is key.
Joe, thank you indeed. The proponents of state police do believe that it will be better managed when, for instance, what's happening in Lagos State today, and you are playing a role in that, and it's a success story, in Lagos so far. That means that, if states are authorized to have police, that police could be better funded. And here I'd like the honorable member here to come in here as an ex-police person. What would you think in this connection? State police, to make police better managed, because of course for over the years there has been committees upon committees, recommendations and all of that, and none has been implemented fully, and Nigerians are not happy for it. So what is your take on the issue of the state police in terms of management?
Well, thank you very much. For Nigerian police to graduate to state policing, it is possible in the face of provision of all the needs. But I want to tell you that the state we're talking about, if the state police is put in place today, our states in Nigeria, they are still not strong enough to provide for the needs of the police in their state. That's why we are at the mercies of the federal government. When the federal government cannot successfully fund the entire police force, cannot give us what we wanted, what we should have, is it the state that is not as rich as the federal government that will do it? All these things we are saying that the police needed, the state cannot provide for it.
So it depends on priority. Are you saying that if federal government prioritizes police, that it cannot fund it?
Yeah. If the federal government did it, so
if they prioritize it,
they have they have the wherewithal to do it, the federal government can do it. But I'm telling you that with our culture, with our nation in Nigeria today, if state police is put in place today, it will not work. With the kind of people we are having at the helms of affairs in the state, they will use the police of a state against another state. Then it will become a problem for the federal government to cater for.
So you're saying that we cannot graduate to that, because what?
For now, it is good, but let's go from one place to the other.
Honorable, so the basis for the question as to the relationship between the call down for the establishment of a trust fund for the Nigerian police, which will be a federal police, versus the ongoing calls also for the establishment of state police or community policing, is to go back again to the salient provisions in the bill with regard to the sources of funding or sources of financing for the trust fund. If you expect various tiers of government to contribute and the states also have their own police force, of course they probably will resist it. I don't know what your take is on this, and then I'll also go back to Professor Prof. Why would this be? I mean, in terms of, say, look, if assuming state police comes into force. All right, we now have state police, and you're also requiring them to fund federal police. Of course, there will be resistance. Wouldn't there be?
Actually, as the honorable member said, we are not matured for state policing. And if you look at it, the 2001 crisis in Kaduna, most of the police that were indigenous were found wanting. They were involved in this thing. That's why most of them, after that, they were posted out of the states to other states. Look at it this way: when you have a state police, you have a governor that is somehow not democratic. He will use it even in the primaries election and whatever election, and the opponent in the states. Actually, we are not matured for that. We have seen it. We have seen a lot of things where governors requested for a particular police commissioner that he should be posted to their state so that they can use him against opposition. Opponents. Actually, if you look at it, some countries that have state policing, you look at their culture, you look at their in Nigeria, the whole agitation is based on regional, tribal, religious, and what have you. Not unlike what you have. The whole Europe, they have only 150 languages. In Nigeria, look at it, more than 200 and something. And how can we just maybe start from there? And if you look at Nigerians, they start from agitating for one of my own to become a leader, and he must be that leader. and not he merited it. So the question for state policing now, our culture, our orientation, and what have you, is not mature to that level.
This issue of state police, it came up because the federal police cannot be funded. Gentlemen, that is the question here. For over how many years in Nigeria? Let's come to this issue of maturity is in the mind. And if you don't start anything, you don't mature into
Let's take the civil servant in the state, my brother.
Let me say this. Let me ask you this. Now, in America, whom, of course, we copy democracy from America. I mean, the system of democracy. We have the FBI, which is the federal police. And the states also have their own police. Now, what I'm trying to say here, if a governor uses the police, he will still step down from power one day. And of course, the better person will use it against him if that is the format. But in any case, it is not. What we are saying is, will he be better managed when police will have state police? In terms of what you cannot be funded. These people cannot be funded.
If you get the statistic of states owing salaries, it can tell you that, oh, these states cannot fund police. 11-month salary, 15-month salary of civil servant in the state cannot be paid. Now, just assume the police, maybe the governor failed to
but it doesn't mean the money is not there. It means that the governor does not want to pay.
What will happen before the federal police come in?
I don't know. Professor Medana, thank you very much. Of course, the argument is not really about whether to have a state police. We just brought in that in to see what the relationship would be like if you went ahead, if the National Assembly went ahead with this bill, it became law, and then you require certain other levels or tiers of government to fund it, and then ultimately you have state police. People are most likely going to raise this question. One of the issues, though, that's never often been addressed is if you have state police, there should be clear delineation of the relationship between the federal police and the state police. So all the fears, I mean, sometimes, could be modified. But just to return to one other aspect, we talked about various committees that were set up in 2008, 2010, 2012. From an insider perspective, Emmanuel Ojukwu, why did the recommendations of those committees not come to fruition?
Some of them did come to fruition, because after each sitting of those committees, government gave a white paper. That white paper was supposed to be implemented by various arms of government. Some were implemented, some were not implemented. I do know that community policing was implemented. There was also the recommendation that policemen should be sent to their states of origin. It's like giving leeway to state policing. That was not done in some areas. It depends on who was asked to do what. Did he do it? If he didn't do it, why didn't he do it? Why did somebody call him to order to do what the wiper has so stated?
Who was supposed to do the
doing?
Is the
government is
no. Let's try to narrow it down. Who was supposed to do the doing? I mean, is it government? Which government will be posting officers to their states?
White paper will say so and so should be done. Now the government who gave the white paper, that's the federal government gave the white paper. It is incumbent on them to ensure that what they've said was done. Where they close their eye, that means they like the political way. They only said it for saying sake, and they never meant it. The issue is that they've not prioritized police. They've not made it a first-line charge in the area of importance. Once you know it's important for the police to be well-positioned for our security, for our welfare, for national development, you will follow every recommendation to the letter and ensure they were effective. But that has not been the case.
The DIG Israel Ajao, also as an insider, might he give us some perspective as to why we didn't see some of these recommendations being implemented? Where did the failure come from?
The failure is from everybody. Lack of political will, that's what I mean. If we identify a problem and we are determined to solve it, we should go the whole hog. There are no half measures about protection of life and property. I do hope that without necessarily going back into history and wasting time on it, I do hope that lessons have been learned by everybody involved, the government, the police leadership, the entire people of this country, so that when this one comes on board, it will not go the way of previous committees. Committees have sat, they have met, they have made recommendations. Some were, like CP Ojukwu said, implemented halfway. And that is what I summarize as the will to go the whole hog. The same way that you have problems with NDDC, ecological funds, but once the government is determined to achieve a particular goal, I'm sure nobody will stand in the way of garbage.
Thank you. That's the word determination of the government, or prioritizing, but the government will go along with. Gentlemen, let's look at one critical point here. You all know about the MD Yusuf Committee, which recommended 2.8 trillion naira to effectively reform and transform the Nigerian police within the period of 5 years. And of course, this translates to about 560, billion naira per annum. How feasible, is this? Let me begin with the Honorable.
Well, I'm not privy to see the recommendation of the MD Yusuf, but I want to say that because those reforms chairman by the MD Yusuf, by Pari Osayande, they were not given a legal framework. That's why they did not work. There must be a legal basis for which these church funds or these reforms are, hanging on. So they were not given legal framework. That's why they failed. Like the retired CP said, that if this kind of thing is put in place, there must be penalties. There are people that will commit offenses in there. And first of all, the Prof said this bill should be given to a board with people that are with proven integrity. Well, how transparency they can be, along the line, we should not leave it at that. We should monitor them. If they have committed offense within the operations of the bill, they should be handled by the provisions of the law of Nigeria. The law is there to cater for them. So the MD Yusuf reform, apart from Sunday reform, they are good ones, but if it is given legal framework, it should have worked.
Well, Honorable, thank you very much. You're a current member of the National Assembly. The Appropriation Act is law by itself, and there is no indication that we have always had 100% budgetary implementation since 1999. All right, now let's take viewers' reactions by way of tweets, and these have come in. Of course, you see the Twitter handle at the bottom of the page. Let's say Fatai Adebi tweets, "Kudos to the Prof for his analysis, but corrupt leaders are to be shown the way out of the force if this has to be done."
Now, Festus Akimboyo, Nigerian police reform should include encouraging local people to volunteer and take part in joint patrols with the police to increase efficiency.
Sani Michael Amakoji tweets, the NPF is underfunded. That the NPF is underfunded is not an excuse for the police to extort money from innocent Nigerians. They need mental reorientation.
Now, you skipped Dele Jackson Solomon. Unemployment, he says, particularly among young people, must be addressed by investing in social and economic initiatives for crime prevention. And thereafter, I have to also Sani Michael Omokaji.
I just read that.
Okay, all right.
Change to progress. I learned that, this is change to progress tweeting now. I learned that in several advanced countries, police generate serious money for government. Is police not generating money in Nigeria? Well, in which country do police generate money for?
Now, also change the program. Police need to deal seriously with corruption, and it will generate funds for fines or from fines for simple offences. That is more than enough.
Habila, if police, when they impose fines to whose coffers the money goes,
it goes to the government coffers.
Habila, of course, Habila Kwarazakshi tweets, police reform is necessary, especially under the current security threats, but I doubt the effectiveness and sustainability.
Alaba Taiwo, the Department of Welfare in the Nigerian police is not doing well. Take a look at some of the Nigerian police uniforms.
And Dele Jack Solomon, another tweet, the bill, that's the current bill for the trust fund, is overdue because police abuse and corruption often come from the top, making it difficult for any kind of change at the lower levels.
Now, Justin Solomon, the bill should become a law. We all see the speed at which the country is slipping into insecurity. It's like a bank without a strong room.
Mike Ayakwa tweets, Nigeria is gravely under-policed. The imperative of reforms in the system cannot be overemphasized for effective policing and efficiency.
And Bossa Wara, the reform is nice, but my take is that the police should recruit more personnel in regards to our population.
Oluwaseun Akinola has this tweet. He says, of course, the Nigeria police generate a lot of money, only that they generate it into their blue or black pockets.
All right, that's the tweets for the day. And at this point, we have to really thank our guests for being part of this program this morning. First, I'd like to start with Professor Mustafa Medena, researcher with the National Assembly. Thank you very much for your insight into the program today. And Emmanuel Ojuku, former Commissioner of Police and former police spokesperson. Thank you indeed for your contribution.
Thank you. Let us love our police.
All right. And Olumide Oni, Honorable Member, House Committee on Police. It's been wonderful talking to you this morning.
Thank you.
All right, and then also our appreciation goes to retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, Israel Ajah, who joined us from our Lagos Network studios. Always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
For having me. Thank you.
Okay, now that does it for the first discussion segment on Good Morning Nigeria. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we will, of course, take the next one, which is about the latest cool in town cinema going.
The Future Assured project of the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, is carrying out free medical screening and distribution of food items at various IDP camps while ensuring the economic empowerment of women through training and skill acquisition. In recognition of her efforts, wives of governors have lent their voices and support.
In Kogi State, we feel the impact of Future Assured, especially in women and children.
The Future Assured program of Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, the wife of the president, has been very assuring and still reassuring in Sokoto State. It has impacted positively in the areas of humanity, especially women and children.
Supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the Academic Secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 08069809807 or call 07036607155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Slow, madam. I recover. Good, carry on. Sit up. Akbar, now waiting be this. Hey, there is smart gun over here. Everybody want make I put them on top. You remember AJ smart connect when I charge 100 naira, then go give me 800 naira. You don't upgrade, no? Now every end of the month, then go give me back all my recharge. Why don't recharge? As that time on us, from this one, no, we just jara. That now over jara back to sender. Over jara back to sender. Mama, busy.
Buy an Airtel SIM and get back all your recharges as data bonus by month end on Smart Connect.
Hey! Alele.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
All right, now there is a new cool in town, and it's not watching Telemundo or any other soap operas that many have come to embrace. And what is this new cool? It's going to the cinemas and just enjoying a good movie here, of course, in Nigeria. And so from Abuja to Port Harcourt to, of course, Lagos and Benin City, cinema goers never fail now to catch a movie premiere or a blockbuster that has been gaining fabulous reviews. But this wasn't certainly the case some 3 decades ago when home movies burst onto the entertainment scene. And of course, you then started having VHS. That becoming of the likes of Living in Bondage and other hit movies in Hollywood ensured that the days of Ade Love and Taxi Driver, unfortunately, screeched to a dying halt. But the cinemas are bouncing back with attendance on a weekly basis. Moviegoers relish the unique experience of a good picture, plus sound quality, and of course there's the popcorn that makes the experience quite enjoyable. Now, sustaining the tempo remains a big challenge, and to get the big bucks from the box office also is a big one. And analysts have said that a lot more requires to be done. But we have a guest with us in the studios this morning to discuss the issue of the revival of the cinema culture in Nigeria. And of course, this is what is keeping scary. And just to indicate for the benefit of the younger ones, we had cinemas in the past in the major cities. If you came to Benin City in those days, what was called Wayside Cinema, somewhere on Iwege Street. We also had Atlantic Cinema, also in Benin City. And in Lagos, you had Odeon and several other cinemas.
In Enugu, you know, we had Day Spring, we had the Rio Cinema, and all of that, you know. And we are happily, we are receiving a gentleman here, you know, in the studio who is going to do the talks, you know, for us with this new trend, you know, in movies. That's engineer Emeka Ike. Emeka Ike is also the president of the Actors Guild. He's an actor. Well, he's a known face. He doesn't need much introduction. You're most welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning.
How did we get here, you know, where we are now, with respect to going to cinema?
Hard work, investments. You see, the entertainment industry had really thrived on personal investment before now. And this investment had now gained government attention. And this attention is culminating into this that we see today. And I'm happy that the government has really come in its way to empower the structures to make sure that we get to where we are. And the private sectors are equally doing a good job. And I can tell you that in the days of Ogunde, in the days of Jaye Simi and all those movies, we had experienced these things, but there, at a point there became a lacuna, a gap. That means that the investment had already, you know, it's no more there. So this time around, the government is, and the system is really becoming responsive to this new crew.
Well, thanks, Emeka Ike. But the government, of course, is not building cinemas. But we have seen a lot of investment in that regard by the private sector. I mean, Silverbird, Ben Bruce, very passionate about this. He's been in show business. He's had some investments in different parts of the country, particularly in Lagos and Abuja, and I think somewhere also in Port Harcourt. But the argument was always made that part of the reason that stunted the early growth of Nollywood was the fact that the industry wasn't making its mega bucks from the box office. Namely, you didn't have cinemas where you could control the receipts before the movies were released into DVDs, which were almost immediately pirated. So, what is the cinema culture in terms of the premieres now doing? Cinema going culture now doing in changing the narrative of Nollywood?
Yeah, there's always a starting point. And if we started just like Hollywood started from that background, if you notice Hollywood too equally started from making VHS, if you look at the story properly, and you find out that they also transcended to becoming a real blockbuster industry. And having said that, we also as an industry needs to look at the structures. It is the structures that build the system. Like we were talking about the police reform. We have the IG, that's the federal police, we have the commissioners of police, we have the area commanders, we have the DPOs. And now, in this way, you can now structure entertainment to contain everybody that is an entertainer. And I think that way you can get the message across properly. So in doing that, it now have a proper regulation. There will be proper regulation. So no individual can just bust in tomorrow and throw things around. This is my new contract. This is how you want to do. There will be a standard contract that is applying to international practice. That, okay, people are going to make the benefit for what you have done and what you're putting in. Because some of these cinemas, if you look at them today, have some contracts that even the producers are crying. So how can we get it to not just be a Ben Bruce affair alone or a Metro Cinema affair alone? That's by strengthening the associations, the guilds, the parastatals that we carry the Nigerian people. And I want to tell you that plenty of these associations have been killed deliberately because the few of the powerful ones want to gain the authority to control the industry. And that's not going to be good for us in the coming years to come, because we're going to have personal enterprises that will not have an industry.
Okay, it's a gradual process to the blockbuster stage, you said, and what bothers some Nigerians is the fact that most of the cinemas that we have today are obtained and the shopping malls, unlike what obtained in the past. When you say you have like in Enugu Rio Cinema, it's just a cinema.
Oh yes.
No shopping of any sort there. So why has that become the order of the day now?
Well, maybe because the man has to make his monies, not just from cinema. He needs to make sure his investment is protected. If then he was scared of setting up just a cinema because cinema might not take care of his investment. So right now you have to add as much as you can to put it out there. But I think going from where they are now, we can move to the next level. People can begin to invest properly into cinema because it's supposed to be a structure. I remember when Domitila came, it was just not a cinema thing. There were no good cinemas. There were just plenty halls, event centers that were converted to cinemas, and every Nigerian saw these movies.
How would this impact on Nollywood as an entertaining business? Because it relied much more on home videos where people watch at home. If you premiere a movie, for instance, and someone is privileged to, watch that in a cinema, there's this belief that the person may not go buying, a copy of it for viewing at home. How would this impact on the Nollywood business overall?
That's why we say we should have a structure. We should have a template that we work with. The templates will say, okay, between XY time and XY time, this movie should be on cinema. Between this XY time and XZ time, this movie should be on tape and then on CDs. And then you have maybe different modus, different ways of selling your products. But if we just have the cinemas that is not working or linked up with the real system, there will be a lacuna, there will be a middle way.
All right, the point you're saying again, this will be like early days, for cinema. But the experience that people will get to know is that midweek now the students are on holidays. You'll find that you go to the malls in major cities in Lagos, for instance, or here in the Federal Capital Territory, and the places are all taken up. They are buying tickets to go in there and watch a movie. Exactly where does the complaint lie? Is it that the business aspect of it has not been properly tidied up? Because we have seen some of the earnings that came from some of the movies that, in 30 Days in Atlanta, for instance, the Sun City, and so on and so forth. But where is the complaint? Because you seem to be making some insinuation with regard to the fact that perhaps there's no proper synergy yet, between among the stakeholders involving, when you premiere, how long it will go around the various cinemas before you have a public issue, a public release.
Yeah, that's to the same point that we're making, that we need to have a synergy between the stakeholders and the cinema owners, so that as a cinema or as a cinema investor, you can have an understanding with the artists, with the producers, with everybody before you go to cinema. And then this understanding will protect everybody's interests. And then the man paying at the cinema point, his money will replicate to everybody. Everybody will feel the impact of that ticketing. But in a case where it's a sole proprietorship, one-man business, then you dictate and tells the man that owns the movie, well, I'm taking 70% of this, your whole efforts, and you have just 30% to group with or something lower than that. Nobody can challenge you because you are the owner of the cinema. So that's why I still keep saying that the stakeholders should be brought in adequately to also operate, because it's an industry that is not just owned by the cinema owners. It is for just the ANTP, AGN, PMAN, DGN, CDGN. We all need to come together to define the industry and say, okay, this is what it is. Then that way, it will make a national sense.
So you need a collaboration, which doesn't exist at the moment.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, and without the existence of such collaboration, well, one wouldn't know how far you can go. But apart from the challenge of piracy, in this business, what other challenges do you have? And with respect to the international appeal of the Nigerian movies, now, how would you place it in the next 5 years?
The challenges we have now will still remain the abandonment, if it's a good English, or abandoning the stakeholders of industries. The real money makers has really, for one reason or the other, abandoned the movie makers, the stakeholders. And I can tell you that they keep happening on AGN having crisis. Oh, they are having crisis. As I speak to you, there is a reform body right now that is bringing the Emeka Ike group, the Binabo group together to make peace, so that nobody will keep saying, because of this crisis, you cannot come together, you cannot have a synergy. It is only when we are able to articulate our agenda that we can have a frontier. But if we are running as individuals, I can be giving some 30 million from the BOI money. But that's not, it's like giving a policeman in Ajaokuta 30 million to make a movie. That is not the whole Nigerian system. And then the Nigerian system is still in poverty, in penury. So we're looking at a situation where AGN can be identified. If there are factions, you can say, okay, this faction, let's divide your money into two. You take your part, stop harping on that, and let's see what you can do.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Emeka, just one point before we wrap up and then go to our other segments. What we're talking about, cinema culture gradually starting to come back in the country, particularly with the younger population. We're actually looking at marketing. And one of the critical points that, again, stakeholders used to complain about was the fact that they didn't have the box office benefit for the release of their premiere and release of their movies before the movies went out to marketers, who also detected all kinds of usurious terms to say, look, we'll give you only a 30-day window. After that, the pirates take charge. But is there a difference now that is emerging with the premieres of movies in cinema halls?
We're still the same people. It's still the same shenanigan. It's still the same problem. Okay, the few people making movies today, the box office movies, are just trying to strain themselves from their little resources and the ones they've gotten to invest. But going beyond that, I keep harping on this, that we need a stakeholders' understanding of both the movie industry and the cinema industry, so that we can all come together, and like it is internationally in Hollywood, in Bollywood, we can define what goes to who. It's not a one-man's decision. If you give a Ben Bruce all the power, he will just take 90%. I say, okay, you guys share 10%. So what do you have as a movie producer? You just go home and you make another movie for him. So it is tilting to one extreme. But to balance it up, we need to have a proper understanding of what the industry is, like it is in Hollywood and in Bollywood, where the government also plays. Like it can't just till tomorrow, it can't play nudity in Bollywood movies. Because the government, it is a cultural thing. You have to still insist on some standards. Right. So those things that's where the government now begins to stamp its feet on standards and say no, no, no to this. These people need this particular percentage, and everything will now work, and we have a proper institution that would compete with international bodies.
All right. I would like to appreciate Engineer Emeka Ike, President, Actors Guild of Nigeria. Thank you very much for being on our program this morning.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's, of course, continue on the stream of entertainment by going over to our entertainment desk now for another story.